Good morning, people of the world. I'm your host, Zachary Asarnow, and welcome to In Your Face Podcast. Welcome to our first podcast of 2021. I know it's already 4 months. Yes, we're in April. So it's already 4 months into 2021. And I haven't really posted that much in 2021. But school's busy, school's hard. That's not a really good excuse, but I'm going to start posting things much more often now. And we have a great episode for you today. We have an interview with author James Ponti, whose new book, City Spies, Golden Gate, came out March 9th. And so I interviewed him about that and all of his other books and just a bunch of other stuff. It's a great conversation, a great interview, and I really hope you enjoy it. And I'm sitting outside by my garden, which was a quarantine project. It finally has some tomatoes, some peppers. I don't know if you can see the red. Where is it? Where is it? It's somewhere over there. But yeah, I'm happy about that. It's pretty good. Let me know what your guys' quarantine projects were. And I am joined here by my sidekick, the plant. It's a plant. I don't know its name yet, but it's a plant. And so I really hope you enjoy this interview with James Ponti. I think it's really great. And thank you so much. Oh, and also another thing about this interview with James Ponti. I interviewed him a week before this interview, and it was a really great interview, 56 minutes long. My questions I thought were pretty good. His answers were amazing, and we just had a great conversation. We had like a 10-minute conversation about clam chowder in San Francisco and how great it is. But I messed up and I forgot to record the audio, so he was nice enough to let me interview him again, and so this is our second interview, but a lot of the same questions. And so, yeah.
Good morning, Zachary. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for doing this again. I'm sorry. I last time I was wearing my headphones, and I forgot to route the audio through the computer.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
So we'll consider that a dress rehearsal.
Yes.
Okay. So I know what we're doing, so we can just jump right in, and as soon as you're ready, make sure you got it all going good. And how's the lighting? Everything all right?
Yep, everything's good.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for meeting with me today on our interview with your new book, City Spies, which came out on the 9th of March. Would you please just give a quick little summary of the book for the people that haven't read it yet?
Which I assume is virtually everyone, so at this point. So I've written a number of book series. My current series is called City Spies. So the first book came out a year ago, and it is about a group of 5 kids from around the world that each fall into the cracks of the different cultures that they're from, and they are all adopted by a secret agent from MI6, British intelligence, and he raises them in northern Scotland as a family of spies, and so MI6 sends them out on missions where adults would stand out too much, but kids can kind of fly under the radar. So the first book was City Spies. The next one, the new one that came out on March 9th, is City Spies Golden Gate. Very happy to say both of them made the New York Times bestseller list, so they're being well received, which is wonderful. And the second story, the new book has them, as Golden Gate might indicate, on a trip that ultimately winds up in San Francisco. And big cities and big icons are a part of the series and kind of how I envisioned it from the beginning. So we got the Eiffel Tower on the cover of the first book. We've got the Golden Gate Bridge on the cover of the second. We go to London. We go, the book I'm writing right now, which is City Spies 3. We go to Moscow and Beijing. So we get a lot of fun, interesting geography and history to play with for the stories.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. So just going off on a different point, there are a lot of like Easter eggs, as you
Right.
say in your book, connecting your previous books to your new books now. So a couple of them are like, you focus a lot on art in your books, like in the Frame series, there are a bunch of art museums and art heists, and in your City Spy books there's a lot of art as well. And also in San Francisco, when they go into the comic book store, they have a comic book that's called Fog City, which is representing your first series that you wrote, Dead City.
Right.
So yeah.
You got a couple things there that, and it's not coincidental that as a kid, I'm trying to add a copy, it's here. As a kid, my absolute favorite book was from the Mix-Up Files of Miss Baisley Frankweiler, which takes place primarily at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So I think that might have inspired me always along the way. But my mom was a painter, and I love art, and I think that art's very visual. And so it's great to have in these crimes and these mysteries and these things that we're trying to work on, great works and pretty things to describe, settings that we're kind of familiar with, because whether we've been to the National Gallery of Art, which is the museum in Frame, or not, we've been to museums, usually we know what that's like. So that is part of it. Also, art is a big deal in the criminal underworld. Mm-hmm. Art is masterpieces of art are often used between criminal enterprises as ways to pay off debts without money, mm-hmm. something that's not illegal. And so there's this whole black market world of art, and it's just a lot of fun to use. And to be honest, I don't want to write books where the crimes and the mysteries involve drugs or violence or a lot of the things that maybe you would see in a crime show on television or a movie. And even though it's not to say the criminals working in the fields where their art theft is involved and all are not bad and notorious in a lot of ways, it is a little less threatening to the world of my readers as, middle schoolers primarily, who it's a little more accessible. So I like that. As far as the reference to Easter egg component, I do like, I call it the Pontiverse, which is the world that all the books exist in that's separate from our world. And I do like things to jump around. So in the first book series, it's called Dead City, and in Dead City, the characters are part of the Omegas, and they all go to this magnet school called the Metropolitan Institute of Science and Technology, and that school is referenced in the first book of City Spies. But the stories about Molly's are referenced, as you said, in the comic book and the second book of City Spies. There are little places where I constantly, the head of MI6 is actually also the same name as the head of the FBI in Frame books. Mm-hmm. And so they're just little fun ways where, one of the great things about middle grade reading is that there are a number of people who, if they like an author, they will read all their books and sometimes multiple. And it's really for those people more than anything else. And I regularly will get a note from one of them, like an email, say, "Oh, I just realized that this is because of this, and isn't that fun?" And that's fun for me because I think a lot of people want, we live in a connected world digitally, and I think a lot of young readers like an excuse to be able to email one of their favorite writers and say, "Ooh, I found this clue you left for me,"
Yeah.
So it's all part of the fun for sure.
Yeah, awesome. When I read them, I find it really fun. When I stumble upon it, I was like, when I stumbled upon the comic book, I was like, oh my gosh, look at that.
It's fun, and it's almost, the thinking is, it's almost like a bonus for you paying attention. Mm-hmm. You get to, it's never going to be pointed out. It's just going to be there. And so if you pay attention, you notice it, then you know that, I'm one of a small subset of people who've read this book who get this joke. Mm-hmm. Or get this reference, and I think that's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. When with your books, what are you ultimately trying to convey to your readers? Like what are you trying to get through to them about your books, your stories, and just the world, like around?
Well, there's a couple things. There's a couple levels on which I think when you're doing something like writing a book, a mass market book, that you need to think about. There is the level of engagement and entertainment. Mm-hmm. So, I think that the books need to be something that if there's a reader out there, they just want a fun escape, they like mysteries, and they want to play along, or they like adventure, and they want to go on the journey, mm-hmm. that is there for them, and that satisfies them. I don't think that's all that it should be, but I think it should do that. Think of if it's a boat, the boat needs to be able to sail and get you from one place to another. Mm-hmm. So that needs to be the case. But the boat should have a lot of other cool things on it, a lot of neat things on it, and the book should have a lot of, there should be messages there, and not messages like you send with like, here's the moral for you to get, but mm-hmm. we should be writing in a world that models certain behaviors and that celebrates certain attitudes. My books are primarily about this sense of kids who use their brains over their brawn, mm-hmm. who come together despite differences, who celebrate those differences to make themselves better as a team than they would be as an individual, mm-hmm. and who find their identity, which is what I think most young readers are doing. And it's one of the reasons they read books, is you're looking to find yourself, you're looking to find an identity. Who am I? What matters to me? Mm-hmm. So I think if you're looking for that kind of thing and you read a book, you should find it as well. Mm-hmm. You should find like, okay, what I would joke with my friends, and sometimes I sign this when I sign books, they go, the secrets of the world are hidden in a book. Mm-hmm. You just have to read it to find them. Some people are there looking for the secrets, and you need to have some of those secrets in there. Mm-hmm. And with that, it can't be this very preachy thing. It can't be this very obvious thing. People are good. Okay, we get that. It needs to be, I think young readers are sophisticated to a level where they want to see it expressed, not just be told it. Mm-hmm. I want to see the actions that show me that working together is a good thing. I don't want you to tell me it's important to work together. Mm-hmm. I don't want you just to show me a diversity of characters. I want that diversity to be both organic, essential, and also unimportant. Like, mm-hmm. The fact that these people are different doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And that's what matters, is the fact that they're just a family. So mm-hmm. those are the themes that I tend to write to. There's also often a lot I write about what some people call found families, like like not a traditional family, and that's kind of goes back to the family I grew up in, to a degree, not obviously as much as 5 kids from around the world adopted by a spy, but families that are a little untraditional. There are so many readers out there who come from families that are untraditional, right, that I think it's just really great for them to see different variations of what that is. Mm-hmm.
Speaking, when you said that you think books have like the secrets of the world, that's kind of funny, because over the summer I started writing a book, and my first line is, "Listen here, you puny little mortals, I'm about to tell you the secrets of our universe."
There you go. That's a good way to start.
Yeah.
And I said world, universe is even better. And actually, sometimes I write universe when I have filled that out on a couple of times when you're signing a book. Sometimes you only have time to sign it, just your name, and there's a line. But sometimes you have something to write. That's one of the things I like to write. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good way to start. So you've already taken care of that by writing it as your first sentence.
What was I gonna say? So you talking about all these big like questions that are like you're addressing with your book and what you're trying to get through. In our world that we're living in now, it's pretty chaotic. There's a lot of stuff happening right now, especially within the past year, year starting last March, with COVID-19. How do you think that affects how your books are being perceived and how you're writing yourself?
I don't know how it affects how books are being perceived. Mm-hmm. I'm not writing about anything that directly relates to COVID and quarantine. Although my first book, actually, a virus, the threat of a virus was a major plot point, came out a week before we had the stuff happen here. I obviously had written that long in advance. But that's not really, and the world of COVID is not a world that I'm really reflecting in. Like the book I'm writing now that will come out next year, I'm not referencing it because, you know, I don't know what the world with regard to basketball would be like, but also it's just a slightly separate timeline that I'm working with.
Right.
I think that the way the book itself is perceived, hopefully books are offering a chance to go places without leaving your house at a time when we can't go anywhere. You know, I feel like one of the things that people are connected with what I'm writing is they are so travel and adventure heavy. They are about going to real places that if you want to while you're reading or in your class, a lot of teachers will do this, you can look up all the places I'm talking about and you can see them. They're all real. And you know, I spent a lot of time on research. You know, I've spent all morning researching the British Embassy in Moscow just for 2 lines in a sentence to make sure, 2 lines in a paragraph, to make sure that I'm accurate with that description. So one of it is it lets us exercise that travel itch a little bit, even if we don't get to leave. So I think that, you know, but I think the perception of books, interestingly enough, has been that, you know, books have been one of the great constants of COVID.
Right.
Movies, we lost movies. You know, now movies are coming on television, but movies are constantly trying to reinvent. And that impact on movies is going to be long-lasting because theaters might not reopen or it might be different. A lot of movies weren't being shot now that would normally be, so there'll be, you know, we don't know. Television had similar restrictions on shooting, but television has evolved and changed a great deal with people binging and a lot more streaming services, and now movies jumping from screens to TV, you know. So there's a lot of disunity and uncertainty around those parts of entertainment information. Books have stayed the same. Books have been really strong. Sales have been strong. Books, interestingly enough, are something that people feel comfortable buying, even if they can't go to a brick and mortar store.
Right.
You know, so, you know, whether it's Amazon, whether it's BarnesandNoble.com, bookshop.org, which is the one I really like, you can go and you can find books that way. Or, you know, I think for a lot of people, at least for us, the bookstore was one of the first places once we started venturing back out again that we felt comfortable, not too crowded. You know, you go, you can just hop in for 10 minutes or whatever. And so books have been incredibly resilient during this period. And so I'm not sure how, and I think part of that is, especially in the world of books that I work in, which is books for children, I think parents have maybe bought more books for their kids than usual because their kids are home more, because their kids can't go and do a lot of physical things, and they want to keep them engaged. And over the summer, one of the things that a group of writers, we have a writing group that all really well-known authors, we get together every Tuesday night on Zoom and talk. One of the things we talked about was our series have sold really well. Normally, you know, like we have box sets, like we'll have 3 books in a book, and they normally don't sell that great. And they've been selling great because I think parents are like, wait, they like this. Here's 3 books to keep you busy for the next couple weeks, you know. So I hope the books are serving good function for people who are feeling trapped. I'm curious to see how some people will handle COVID in the writing. You know, normally the turnaround time from when a book is started till it comes out is about 2 years. You know, in a year or so when we're going to start seeing books that really direct COVID head on, you know, but I don't know that people are going to want to read that too much. I feel like once we get through this, we're going to want a little break before we delve back into it.
You were speaking about research a little earlier. What is your favorite part of research? It can take a long time, but what is your favorite part about your research?
Well, I like learning things. You know, I always enjoyed school. There are certain subjects that you like more than other subjects, but the beauty of what I'm doing is the stuff I'm researching is the stuff I'm inherently interested in. So you mentioned earlier, the Frame book. So for Frame, the second Frame book takes place, the crime takes place at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington. And because I worked on the book, I just wrote to them, and I got a behind-the-scenes tour of the Kennedy Center. That was amazing. I would never normally get. The next book took place at the Library of Congress. So my wife, who is a history teacher, she and I got to go to the Library of Congress, and they took us, and they let us, like, in a room just with two of us and a person from the library. We got to see Thomas Jefferson's copy of the Federalist Papers and hold it. We got to see the content up close. I didn't touch it, but up close, the contents of Abraham Lincoln's pockets for the night he was murdered. We had all these treasures that they had because they wanted them described. They wanted what the museum, the library had to offer to describe well in the book. It was amazing. In working, I recently got writing a Spies story now. I recently was on the phone for like half an hour, 45 minutes with a high-ranking member of the CIA, whose wife just happens, luckily for me, to be a librarian and like my books. And she got us, and so I got to ask him all about the world of espionage in a realistic way. I got to ask him what he hates about movies and books about spies that get wrong, so I can maybe avoid that. So I love, getting to talk to someone who is an expert about something is fascinating, even if it's not a subject you aren't specifically interested in, because experts know things that are great. So getting exposed to that, having a reason to call these people, that part is great. Also, I've not been able to do it for this book because of COVID. I try to travel to the locations for the books. I try to see them up close, and I love to travel. I love, that experience. The original City Spies was born in part by a trip my wife and I took to London and Paris with our son, who was going to school in Europe for the summer, or for the year. And, we got to go to London and Paris. That's pretty great. And it was kind of for work. And, we walked the streets that the characters walk, and you're looking for things that will enrich the copy and enrich the manuscript of what you're writing. So I love the travel and the expertise. That part of research is wonderful. Frustrating sometimes is figuring out, okay, how long does it take you to get from this hotel in Beijing to the airport? So realistically, I don't have my characters teleporting across, and I don't speak Chinese, and I'm reading things and I can't. So that sometimes but even that is kind of, you're mining for a specific bit of information can be fun when you finally find it. It's like, aha, I have discovered you, color of the paint in the reception hall at the British Embassy. Now I can describe you accurately.
Yeah, that sounds really fun, learning about all these things. Traveling is for you, it seems like a very important part of research. And with COVID, can't really travel too much. But so how has, like, you mentioned a little earlier that it changed it, but how much has it changed your research?
Well, so this book I'm writing right now takes place in Moscow and Beijing, and I've not been to either. My brother used to live in Moscow. He was a U.S. diplomat, so he helped put me in touch with people who then, ideally, I talked to them on the phone for a little bit to ask them to explain the situation, get it, and then I text them when I have questions, oh, where would you get ice cream? Like stuff like that. Oh, how long is the wait at the airport to get through customs? And you wouldn't think that stuff matters, and it doesn't matter. It's not like some reader in some suburban American home is going to look at that and say that, they got through customs awful quick for Moscow. But the more right it is in little details, the more right everything feels. And the more comfortable I am in going into specifics and not overloading them. You don't want to say it took 2 hours, 17 minutes to go through, but the more enriched and realistic it feels and comes to life. And that's really, I'm asking you to do a lot. I'm asking you to believe in a world where 12, 13, 14, and 15-year-olds are spies for MI6. You know, I get that that's not an easy to swallow belief. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to present it to you in a way that almost seems realistic. And everything else I'm going to tell you is going to be right on. And so if I do that, then maybe, just maybe, you're willing to suspend your disbelief and jump into the story with them. And that's, you know, that's... So, I don't know, I got to lost there. So, I am having to rely more on others than first-hand part. Yeah. You know, I'm having to rely there's a friend from college who teaches in China, and I just sent him a long email today, and he has friends who are tour guides in Beijing, and they're going to try to give me some specifics. Mm-hmm. I have, you know, always, you know, I have tour guides of every place where I'm going, so much so that I forget I've ordered one, so I ordered the same one twice. You know, there's a chess subplot, and normally I would like to go, so I got a bunch of chess books, and I got on the phone with, you know, it's the story involves an international chess competition in Moscow, and so I got on the phone and ended up talking to the person from the U.S. Chess Federation who helps organize those events in the U.S., and so I could at least figure out, okay, well, how they run, do the kids talk, what are the rules, what are the times, how long does it take, how many days does it take, and able to fill it out. So I'm having to rely more on phone and Zoom and things like that, but through COVID, we've become more used to that.
Yes.
You know, and you know, Google Maps is always a really beneficial thing that you can drop down and you can look around and you can. Some of that is a little more restricted for China and Russia, so I can't do it as easily as here. But the internet gives you an amazing access to information. I tell you, the biggest issue that I have is there's a subplot that involves, you know, there's a lot of stored old nuclear weapons in Russia and China, and there's a subplot that involves some of that getting stolen and where that might end up. The more you search for that on the internet, the more you're convinced the CIA is going to come break down your door. Like, why are you trying to find out where the Russians have hidden all their old nuclear warheads? You know, so I sometimes limit how much research I do because I don't want to accidentally go from reputable places to like some conspiracy extremist with his visions and me not knowing the difference because it's 2 a.m. and I'm tired. So you always worry about that, but that and search histories can be fun. I wrote a book about prom once, and for 6 months I got prom dress ads constantly coming into our email and social media because I had looked up so many things about dresses and prom and themes and all like that they were certain that I was a high school senior getting ready to go.
That's really funny, and it kind of shows like the background of social media and how it tries to like go after you. That's pretty funny. Speaking about like how you try to take your readers with you to the place in the book, and how you try to connect the characters. One of my favorite lines that really connects to me is when Rio says, "Believe me," Rio said, "if algebra tasted as good as a fajita beef burrito covered in queso, I would never miss an assignment." And I just love that. It really connects to me.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I definitely love food, and in San Francisco, I never really knew how like diverse they were in food. Like, I've been there and I had amazing clam chowder, but that was pretty much all I had there.
You know, one of the characters is mildly to extremely obsessed with food. Mm-hmm. And I did that in part, well, you're trying to find different things for different characters and different areas of expertise. But food is such a part of traveling. It had to be part of the book to me, because food is one of the areas specifically that a reader can connect with an area, with a geographic region. Right. And it's also something they can experience from home and have opinions of at home. You know, so I really try to embrace, and I'm by no means a foodie. I like to cook. I like certain things, but I am not as experimental as my characters and as brave as my characters. But I want to celebrate that, and we're always taught, and we always try to to address all the senses in your writing. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? And taste is a really important one too. So one of the questions I wrote to the people in China last night was, describe a really specific, great Beijing meal for me. Because my knowledge of Chinese food is food that I ate when I was in Los Angeles, that I ate here, made that's, I'm sure, primarily American. With, I want the actual Chinese experience, so I can compare that to the experience that the reader has, and maybe point out some differences. But also, that's just, you read some of these meals. My goal is that sometimes after reading some of the parts, people get hungry. I know sometimes we'll watch something on TV, like we were watching that Stanley Tucci Across Italy show. It's like, oh, we gotta have pasta. I mean, it's amazing. So we have these great triggers in us as humans, and I'm trying to pull some. So, but Rio is the character you quoted there. He loves food. He doesn't love school so much. It's I wanted it also to be realistic. I didn't want every kid to be a genius straight A student. And so that's Rio. If algebra gave him the pleasure that food did, he would be as dedicated to algebra as he was to food. But since it doesn't, he is incredibly dedicated to food. Right. And in the third book, there's a whole even longer thing about this app that he's trying to invent. That he has this whole 20-point survey he does of every new food he tries, and it generates a score through because I also want to show that he's smart.
Right.
That just because he doesn't do well in school doesn't mean he's not smart. So I wanted to take his love of food and I wanted to turn it into something even more. And then also, I think finally is that it's fun to it shows you an indication of what places are like. Right. San Francisco food is amazing. The seafood is great. You talk about the clam chowder is great. Yes. But if you look at the way if you get to spend time in the city and away from the tourist spots, you'll notice there's a huge Italian community in San Francisco. So they have great Italian delis all over the Bay Area. There's a great Mexican community there. So you have really strong Mexican food which I love throughout there. And also there's incredible Asian communities, Chinatown, Little Tokyo. So in San Francisco is a great food city, better than Los Angeles, which is where I lived when I went to college in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles has good food, but San Francisco has amazing food. And so I wanted to celebrate that along with Alcatraz and Golden Gate Bridge.
With a lot of your books, you like to basically just with books, they're sharing stories and your view of the world and the stories you want to share. What do you think how important do you think stories are in the world, and why do you think they should be shared?
Well, I think that there's two famous quotes, and I don't know if they're the same person. One's Mark Twain, maybe both are Mark Twain, but it's if you want to build empathy, read a book. If you want to eliminate prejudice, travel, right? So that's not what the quote is, but that's the gist of it, is that when you share stories, you develop empathy by by being able to compare your life experience to those of others. And that's where understanding comes from. And true understanding comes if you get to travel and you get to meet people from different places and you realize differences and commonalities. I think both of those tie into the storytelling in the book. And that's, again, part of the travel I talked about in the book. But I think storytelling helps us connect with other people.
Right.
And what I find really fascinating about the idea of writing a book is the more specific you are, the more universal it becomes. Because when you're specific, people see specific things. There's I love a really good stand-up comic. I love to go and enjoy that. And I write humor, and I used to, I studied humor a lot. And the gift of the stand-up comic, at least the type that I enjoy, which everyone has, there's certainly more than one kind, but the real gift of it often is I'm going to share something deeply personal about my life. And I'm going to point out some awkward things about that. And you're going to laugh because you're going to recognize yourself in that commentary.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to realize that the ridiculous thing that my parents did to us when I was little is similar or maybe identical to the ridiculous thing that your parents did.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to laugh because part of you is going to be free to realize, oh, wait, that's not unique to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a shared experience. Or, oh, wait, I've done that, but I've never thought of it that way. And now that kind of takes the life experience, which maybe is not humorous, and it chops it in a way that lets you laugh at it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you do when you write a book. I'm going to share a story with you that hopefully you're going to, with one of these 5 kids, find moments like you did with Rio in that one thing and say, oh, I can totally identify with that statement.
Mm-hmm.
I totally project myself onto that. And once you've done that, now you are invested in that book.
Mm-hmm.
And you are part of the story. And you and I, this is a nice thing. I get to meet you, we even if it's just here. Normally you never meet. The author and the reader never meet,
Mm-hmm.
but they still connect, and that's pretty great. So I think that sharing of stories is a really powerful tool to bring us together.
Mm-hmm. Which is especially important now when we can't
It
really...
absolutely is.
Yeah, where we can't...
And so much of the narrative of our world at the moment
Mm-hmm.
is to focus on things that make us different.
Yes.
And ascribing to yourself the qualities of that different when so much makes us similar. So a vast more makes us similar. And so I think that's one of the things that help with books, is it makes us feel connected. And once you're connected with someone, it's a little harder to disregard them or their viewpoint.
Right. Yeah, you have a quote that you said that I really like that connects to this. It says, "Everyone has a story to tell, and everyone's story is unique to them. It doesn't take money or special equipment, just your imagination and some paper. Oh, and something to write with, but that's all." And I really like that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, but I think that's true. I think that's one of I didn't come from much. I didn't have no one in our family had ever been to college before we were looking to strike out on our own, and it didn't take anything to be a writer. It didn't take a membership fee or a specific college degree, although I wouldn't got one, but it didn't, you didn't have to have certain things. All you had to do was want to share your story, and the truth is everyone does have a story.
Yeah.
Here in Central Florida where we live, there have been amazing writers from here. Zora Neale Hurston, we celebrate as we should. She's one of the greatest writers in American history. She's from Eatonville. Two of the biggest writers in children's literature right now are Kate DiCamillo, who's won multiple Newbery Awards, John Green, who is like the voice of young adult literature.
Mm-hmm.
John's from Winter Park, Kate's from Claremont. It's not exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
We each have a story, and the beauty of it is that story is unique to you. If I didn't write my books, someone else would write some kind of spy book. I don't doubt that. I don't overinflate my role in the cosmic thing, but they wouldn't write the same one that I wrote. Excuse me. No, sorry. I thought I could hold that off.
It's okay.
Sorry. Okay, I'm going to start that over because, if I didn't write the books that I wrote, someone else would write similar books and they'd fill those same slots in the bookshelves in the library and the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
But they wouldn't be the same books that I wrote. The books that I write are specific to me, my interests, my likes, my passions, my beliefs. And the voice that I have is unique, and that's one of the really nice things about writing is you write in a voice, and the voice you bring to the table is your own. You shouldn't try to emulate others. You should lean into and embrace who you are. And when you share that story, then you're sharing your unique vision, your unique view.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say something. I'm trying to remember what I was gonna say. I remember. Speaking of the stories, what is your favorite story? I remember our previous interview, I asked what your favorite book is, but What is your favorite story? Like, could be anything.
Tell me yours first. What I'm thinking. I'm gonna think. What's yours? What's your favorite book? Your favorite story?
My favorite book is The Boys in the Boat.
Boys in the Boat. It's an amazing book.
It is. It
is an absolutely amazing book, and amazing because it shows you that. Again, when I said the focus, the more specific something is, the more universal it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's hardly anything more specific than the Berlin Olympic U.S. rowing team from the University of Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But in that is just a multiplicity of places for us to connect.
Mm-hmm.
I love movies growing up. I majored in film in college.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a lot of different stories that connect to me in different ways. I don't really want to pick one as an overall, because I don't want, later I'll kick myself. You know, the movie that most excited me, or that most triggered in me, hey, this is interesting, was Raiders of the Lost Ark. I was, I think, 13 years old, and I went to see that, and I'm like, okay, this is fun, this is good, this is exciting, and there is certainly a belief in my writing of smart action and humor together, and that connects with me. The movie that really excited me the most as a kid, though, was when I was 10 years old. I saw All the President's Men, and it is not a 10-year-old movie. It's a movie about Watergate. But for years, I've been hearing about Watergate, and then I saw this movie, and in 2 hours, I finally understood something that had baffled me as a kid. So I think early on, I thought, wow, movies can really crystallize the world for you in a way that's exciting.
Right.
The book was from the Mixed Up Files and Space and Frank. While I showed you earlier, this one, I loved a character who I could relate to in a real world setting, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So I thought that was amazing, and so I'll go with those. Those are ones that got me excited. You know, my favorite movie of all time is The Godfather, and I can watch that anytime. And it's because, again, it's a very specific thing, but it tells the story of a family and what that means to a kind of a perverse and bad outcome, but fascinating all the ways. You see, you know, so, you know, I get sucked up into movies and books, and I get lost in them in a very good way.
So with my website, In Your Face News, I have a mantra that I try to live by called Stay Curious, and I've tried to live by it. So I came up with it over the summer when I created my website, and I'm trying to base everything I do off of that. And I'm just trying to live my life in that way. Do you have any specific mantra or try a way to try to live your life, or things that you base everything you do off of?
Well, I wish I had Stay Curious, but that one's probably better than me to come up with. I mean, that's a really good one. I think, you know, beyond the golden rule and all these kinds of things that you want to do, you know, it's really do the right thing. And I don't mean the movie, although it's a good movie, it's a really good movie. You know, I find that, you know, most often we are challenged. We know what to do. It may not be the easier thing. So if you do the right thing more often than not, it just saves so much baggage in your life of guilt and wondering and regret and all these kinds of things. So for a life lesson, I think it's that, but I think also it's, you know, celebrate each other. If we can celebrate each other in our works and in our achievement and our kindness and our empathy, it's just so much easier. You know, and it's not always easy to do, because sometimes you celebrate one direction and it doesn't come back. But I try to motor through that and just be upbeat and positive, you know, and really look forward to. But what's great about yours, about Curious, is if you stay curious, if you keep that going, Because every day you have a reason to wake up and you're going. Every day it's like, oh, what am I going to learn today?
Mm-hmm.
What's new today? Because I think what really separates us is when we don't think there's anything new.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, is this all there is? I'm unsatisfied, And when you're unsatisfied, that leads to not doing the right thing, But if you're always like, hey, there's something great I'm going to learn today, it gives you a reason to fight, to push through it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. James Ponti's new book, City Spies, Golden Gate, is out now in bookstores and online. You can find it at barnesandnoble.com or at Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You said Writer's Block on Park Avenue.
The Writer's Block on Park Avenue has a bunch of signed copies as well if you want a signed copy.
It has a bunch of signed copies. Yeah. And yeah, it's a great read, and so are all of his other books.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me in. This is a great thing you've got going here.
Thank you.
And and definitely stay curious. That's a good way to make it all come together. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, and wish everyone a safe and healthy and happy day.
Awesome. Thank you. You too. Have a great day, and stay curious to you too.
I will, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Let me know who I should interview next, what I should talk about next, any articles you want me to write, what things you want to know, any stories you might have, bring them to me. I would be so happy to share them. And yeah, we're going to start a new segment here soon called Burning Questions. So let me know any questions that you have just burning in your mind, something that you really, really, really want to know. Our first episode is going to be on the history of pizza. So that's going to be very interesting. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Please share, please like, please subscribe. And yeah, I hope you liked it. And thank you. Stay safe and stay curious.